I swear, the whole night smelled like too much money and not enough honesty. Christmas dinner at the Whitmore estate always felt like a Broadway show with worse acting, but this year? Yeah, this year deserved a standing ovation for messiest performance. The moment Daniel stood up from his seat, glass raised high like he was about to accept a Grammy, the chatter in the room melted into silence. Even the forks froze midair. He flashed that polished smile, the one I used to think meant something, and said, "Tonight's dance is dedicated to the woman I've loved for 10 years. Cute, right? Romantic, if you're watching from the outside." But I wasn't watching from the outside. I was sitting right there, front row center, when his eyes drifted past me, past everyone, and landed squarely on my sister, Sophie. She blinked only once before smiling like she'd been waiting her whole life to hear that line. Honestly, she looked like she'd practiced blushing in the mirror. The guests gasped. Tables rustled. Someone whispered, "Oh my God, that's adorable." Yeah, adorable. Like stepping on a Lego adorable. Daniel didn't even hesitate. Just strolled right past me, smelling like the cologne I bought him last year, and stopped in front of her. He held out his hand with the confidence of a man who forgot who paid his $850,000 debt. Spoiler, it wasn't Sophie. "Dance with me," he told her. No apology. Not even the courtesy of a side glance. My father, Richard, sat at the head of the table watching the whole thing with the emotional range of a snowman. He didn't stop them. Of course he didn't. Sophie was his favorite toy, shiny, obedient, and always ready to smile on command. The band started playing something soft and festive, but it sounded off. Too bright for the mood, too cheerful for the way my lungs suddenly felt tight. Daniel pulled Sophie closer than a man with a wife in the room should ever pull anyone. Cameras flashed. Laughter rippled through the crowd. I stayed seated. Just stared. Every twirl, every fake grin, every second of their performance dug a little deeper. Then Daniel spun her dramatically and said loud enough for the chandelier to hear, "This Christmas will stay with me forever." The guests clapped like seals. Someone whistled. Sophie curtsied like she was auditioning for royalty. And that's when I stood. Not fast. Not dramatic. Slow control. Every step of my heels hitting the marble felt like a countdown. When the music finally cut, I smiled at them both. A smile sharp enough to slice through the tension. 10 years, huh? I said. Daniel froze. Sophie stopped breathing. "Nora," he started. "Oh, no, babe. I'm listening," I said. "Just counting. Because 10 years sounds familiar. That's about how long I spent paying off your little $850,000 disaster, right?" The room fell silent, so fast it felt like a power outage. Sophie's hand slipped from his arm. A woman at the table choked on her wine. Someone whispered, "Oh, hell." "Don't worry," I continued calmly. "It's all paid. Every cent. I even kept receipts. You know, in case you ever forgot who bailed you out." Richard's cane tapped once on the floor, his classy shut up signal. I ignored it. Daniel's face shifted from red to ghostly pale. "We'll talk later," he muttered. I tilted my head. "Oh, I doubt that. Later you'll be busy explaining why your business account uses the same password as that charity fund we're definitely going to chat about." A ripple of shock ran through the room. Sophie stepped back like I'd slapped her with facts because, well, I had. Daniel slammed his glass down. The wine splattered across the tablecloth like blood. Dramatic, sure, but he started it. "That stain looks expensive," I said sweetly. "Should I send the bill to you or your dance partner?" Someone actually snorted. Everything after that collapsed. The coughing, the choking, the accusations, the phones recording. Daniel's throat tightened like guilt had hands. Sophie panicked. Guests whispered. And me? I simply watched it unfold, because sometimes the truth arrives fashionably late, but still lands like a punch. But trust me, the mess didn't end on that dance floor. The real explosion came the next morning, when the family decided to erase me completely. The morning after the Christmas blowout felt like waking up inside a snow globe someone had shaken too hard. Quiet, heavy, suspiciously still. When I came downstairs at Margaret's, after grabbing some sleep that barely counted, I half expected Daniel to jump out from behind the sofa with another lie queued up. Instead, inside the Whitmore mansion, where I'd lived for years, Daniel and my father were already seated at the dining table, looking like two men who'd rehearsed their disappointment faces in the mirror. I didn't sit. I grabbed a mug, poured myself coffee, and stirred it slow enough to irritate them. Silence was my new hobby. Richard cleared his throat. You humiliated our family last night. I blinked at him. And good morning to you too. Daniel leaned forward, voice raspy. Nora, you went too far. Did I? I asked, sipping calmly. You publicly declared your undying love for my sister in front of 50 people. I simply added the financial footnotes. Richard slammed his cane on the floor. Classic dramatic dad move. Enough with the sarcasm. You're finished here. I stared at him. Finished. Richard, I built this house, paid your son's debt, bought time for your reputation. You're welcome. He leaned closer. You don't belong in this family anymore. That's fine, I said, setting my mug down. I don't freeze in the cold the way you think I do. Daniel stood abruptly. He held a stack of papers, careful not to meet my eyes. This isn't a negotiation. I spoke to the bank. Your access to our joint accounts is frozen. Ah, there it was. The punishment phase. I raised an eyebrow. Our accounts. Or just mine. Richard nodded sharply to Daniel like he was conducting a symphony called, Get her out. Erase her name from everything, he ordered. Cards, estate cars. All of it. Daniel whispered. It's already done. Right then, my phone buzzed. A text from the bank. Payment canceled. Account closed. I almost laughed. Damn, you move fast. I should have had you manage my investments. Richard scowled. We protect what's ours. And apparently what used to be mine, I replied. At the top of the stairs, Sophie appeared wearing Daniel's robe, deja vu with extra betrayal. She looked like a ghost trying to apologize. Nora, please don't leave like this. I cut her off. You already danced enough for all three of us. She bit her lip, eyes watery. I didn't mean for this to happen. Sophie, I said, you don't accidentally idolize a married man for 10 years. That's not a whoopsie. That's a hobby. She looked at our father as if he'd save her. He stayed silent. That's when it hit me. She wasn't the favorite. She was the puppet. Daniel stepped forward one more time. If you just calm down. I held up my hand. No. Save the breath. You'll need it when the press calls. His expression twisted. You think anyone will believe you? I smiled. I don't need belief. I have proof. Richard shifted, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. The guilty flinch. He knew exactly what I had. His voice dropped an octave. Are you threatening your own father? I'm reminding him, I said softly, that his daughter knows how to count. He stiffened. Cane slammed. Get out of my house. I grabbed my bag, then paused. Your house? I asked. You mean the one Mom designed? The one you mortgaged twice for your visions? That house? He didn't answer. Daniel whispered, Please, Nora, don't make this worse. Worse. I laughed once. Sweetheart, you made it public. I'm just proofreading. I walked to the door. Sophie called after me. Where will you go? Anywhere that doesn't reek of your perfume, I muttered. Outside, snow burned against my face like ice was trying to slap me awake. The driver opened the car door. Back home, Mrs. Bennett. No, I said. Drive somewhere that doesn't know my last name. As the house faded in the rearview, I whispered, So this is what freedom costs. But I had no idea that losing everything was exactly what I needed, because the truth waiting for me next would flip my world all over again. Snow crunched under my boots like it had a secret to tell. The city was quiet, gray, and smelled of exhaust and wet asphalt, the kind of morning that makes you forget the heat of a fireplace. I wasn't thinking about the cold, though. I was thinking about Margaret, my aunt, the only person left in the world who had never traded truth for comfort. Her old brick house was exactly where I remembered it, a soft glow spilling from the porch light. I hadn't been there in years, but my hands didn't need directions. They knew the rhythm of the knock. Tap, tap, tap. The door swung open. About time you showed up before freezing your nose off. she said quietly. Gray shawl wrapped tight, silver hairpin neatly. Her eyes scanned me like she'd been reading my mind all morning. I stepped inside. The smell of pine and tea hit me instantly, familiar and grounding. Margaret's place hadn't changed. Stacks of books by the window, a small fire in the iron stove, a cat sprawled across the chair like it owned the truth of the world. You didn't cry, she noted, handing me a steaming cup of tea. Not anymore, I said. She nodded, then moved to a cabinet and pulled out a small red box tied with a faded ribbon. Your mother left this for you, she said, placing it gently on the table. She wanted you to have it when the truth mattered more than comfort. Inside was a silver snowflake necklace, delicate and cold to the touch, catching the firelight in tiny flashes. And this? I asked, noticing a leather-bound notebook beside it. The Christmas ledger, she replied. Every transaction, every signature your father thought would stay hidden. Your mother wrote it all down. Hid it. And yeah, she saw things you're going to need to see. I flipped the pages slowly. Offshore accounts, transfers, charity funds that never helped anyone. Just a trail of lies covering debts, lies, and cover-ups. My hands trembled slightly, not from cold, but from the weight of it all. Margaret's eyes were sharp. Your father built a fortune on deception, and Daniel, he's not as innocent as you thought. He was part of the machine. Whether he knew or not, he played along. You paid off his mess. That loop is closed. I swallowed. So all this time, I wasn't just saving a man. I was maintaining a lie. Not quite, Margaret said. You were surviving. That's why he hates you. You're the reminder that the empire he built is rotten at its core. The fire popped. I held the necklace tight, feeling its metal bite lightly at my palm. So, what do I do now? Finish what she started, Margaret said. Truth has a longer memory than money. I nodded slowly, trying to absorb the calm in her voice. I can't do this alone. He owns everything. No, he only owns what people don't see, she corrected. You have what he fears most, proof, and if you use it right, you can finally be free. I ran my fingers along the ledger. Every signature, every number screamed for exposure. My pulse quickened. Margaret poured more tea, eyes softening. Your mother knew you needed to lose everything before you'd use it right. I let the words sink, heavy but true. Silence filled the room, broken only by the fire and the cat's occasional twitch. You're ready, she said finally. Tomorrow you call Martin Cole. He still owes me a favor. The only man your father couldn't buy. I nodded again. Martin Cole, the lawyer who had once promised justice in whispers. If anyone could help navigate the mess buried under lies, it was him. I placed the necklace around my neck, warm, almost alive. Margaret's gaze followed me like she could see the battles waiting ahead. Be careful, she said softly, but don't fear him. You have what counts. Outside, the snow had stopped. The sky was pale blue, thin sunlight spilling over the rooftops. I stepped into the chill, the ledger under my arm, the necklace warm against my chest. Every step felt like a declaration. I wasn't disappearing. I was moving forward. Somewhere ahead, Martin Cole was waiting. And after that, Eli, the kid who could hack the impossible, track the lost, resurrect the deleted. The real work was about to begin. I glanced back once at Margaret's porch, faint glow against the cold morning. She raised her hand, silent blessing. I whispered to myself, he killed her with kindness. And now, I'll bring the truth back to life. But first, I had to find Martin, uncover what Daniel and my father had buried, and make sure every last lie was traced, caught, and ready to explode. And let me tell you, the deeper I dug, the uglier it got. Martin Cole's office sat above an old, run-down pharmacy downtown, the kind of place where secrets don't echo, they hibernate. I hadn't been there in years, not since the wedding that felt more like a funeral for my trust. The stairs creaked under my boots, and when I pushed the glass door open, the smell of paper and stale coffee hit me like a slap. Martin looked up from a stack of files. Lines had crept around his eyes since I'd last seen him, but not the softness. Nora Bennett, he said slowly. Surprises follow you like a bad habit. I set the leather-bound ledger on the desk and slid it toward him. I'm not here for pleasantries. I'm here for proof. He flipped through the pages, brow furrowed. You know what this is, right? Enough to ruin your father. Maybe Daniel too. But more importantly, enough to free me. He leaned back, calm as ever. Still giving orders, huh? I'm done taking them, I said. Martin adjusted his glasses and opened a drawer, pulling out a thin folder. You kept copies. Every last one, I said. Emails, receipts, wire transfers. Every line screams fraud. He nodded. Your mother's foresight was impressive. She believed someone would come looking eventually. I tapped the ledger. Yes, she knew it'd be me. Seems like it, Martin said. Then he reached for the phone. You'll need someone to dig deeper. Someone who doesn't flinch at servers or threats. Who? I asked. A kid named Eli TR. Brilliant, reckless. Used to work in cybersecurity for a bank that mysteriously lost millions. He can find things that don't want to be found. I raised an eyebrow. Sounds fun. Fun isn't the word, Martin said, dialing. He'll find what's missing. While the phone rang, I studied the ledger again. Every number felt alive, like whispers from the past. When Martin hung up, he smiled faintly. Ellie's on his way. You'll like him. He doesn't talk much, but he moves fast. In minutes, the door creaked open and Eli stepped in, late 20s, snow-dusted coat, eyes sharp and calculating. He set a laptop on the desk. You must be Nora Bennett. Just Nora, I said. MRS. Bennett is busy living in someone else's lies now. He smirked faintly. Understood. Martin gave him a nod. Eli, the Evergreen Ledger. December transfers, fake accounts, anything proving it was never real. Ellie's fingers danced over the keys like a pianist possessed. If it exists, it left a trace. Hours passed in silence, punctuated by the hum of machines and occasional muttered curses. Deleted emails, hidden PDFs, forged signatures. Eli unearthed it all. Every ghost in the system now had a spotlight. When he finished, he handed me a stack of printed pages. Encrypted, mirrored, backed up in 3 locations. Safe. For now. I turned the pages in my hands. The magnitude hit me, Daniel, my father, even parts of the Whitmore Foundation. Every lie documented, impossible to deny. I met Martin's gaze. They'll come for it. They will, he said. And when they do, you'll know first. But right now, you hold the detonator. I tucked the folders into my bag, heart steady. Good, because once this goes public, forgiveness won't exist. No home will be left. Ellie's laptop beeped once. A final confirmation. Admin override, delete project, he muttered. Timestamp. Night your mother died. I froze. He did it himself. Eli nodded. Arrogant men always do. I folded the paper carefully, placing it with the rest. 3 copies stored, one in my hands, one in Martin's secure vault, and one offline hidden, enough to survive any fire they tried to start. Outside, the city was gray, snow falling in quiet flakes. The air bit, sharp and clean. I let it hit my face. Every inhale reminded me. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was hunting. Martin called after me. Once it goes live, the world will change. Be ready for it. I've been ready since Christmas dinner, I said. Eli smirked faintly. You sound calm for someone holding a bomb. Learning from the man who built it, I replied. The ledger under my arm, the USB drive secure, the truth encrypted and mirrored. For the first time in years, I felt the quiet thrill of control. The countdown had begun. Because the moment the Evergreen files went public, everything my father, Daniel, and their cronies had built on lies would start to crumble, and there was no going back. The evening sky was bruised purple when I met Eli at the co-working spot above the print shop. The place smelled like burnt coffee and old circuits, the perfect lair for digital mischief. Monitors glowed in the dim light like 1,000 tiny eyes. Eli didn't look up. You came alone, he said, fingers already flying over the keyboard. Prefer it that way, I replied, sliding into the chair beside him. He gestured at the screens. I've been digging through Evergreen. It's worse than you thought. I leaned forward. Show me. Email subjects, deleted folders, reassigned transfers, Every trace of the so-called charity's operations was laid bare. Metadata trails, server logs, ghost accounts. Every deletion left fingerprints. Who sent these? I asked, pointing at the logs. Richard Whitmore, Daniel Bennett, and 2 trustees. Eli said, the same week your mother died. They covered it well. Too well. Someone with admin access tried to erase everything. But metadata doesn't lie. I swallowed. The magnitude hit me. Every file, every fake name, every offshore transaction, it all pointed back to them. Eli opened a folder labeled Evergreen Orphans. Scanned forms, signatures, forged receipts. He shook his head. These kids never existed. Every name is lifted from census records decades old. My stomach churned. So the empire is built on ghosts. And they paid Daniel with their silence, he added. Can you pull everything? I asked. I can. But they'll know someone's inside. Still monitoring. Mirror it quietly, I said. Make them think it's gone. Ghosts again. Ellie's fingers flew. Machines hummed, fans whirred. Lines of code and progress bars scrolled faster than the eye could track. Every hidden email, bank record, and PDF appeared on the monitors. Evidence so damning it could ruin lives and expose decades of theft. Finally, he stopped. Done. Mirrored, encrypted, 3 backup locations. I took the encrypted drive he handed me, and if they try to erase it, they will, he said. But 1 copy is offline, safe from fire, deletion, or intimidation. I nodded. Good. Once this goes public, the truth won't just sting, it'll burn. Eli smirked. You talk like someone who survived worse than fire. I lifted my chin. I have. Then he pointed to 1 final line of code on the screen. Admin override, delete project. Timestamp, the night my mother died. I froze. He did it himself. Eli shrugged. Arrogance. Arrogant men always do. But now it's mirrored. Everywhere. I looked out the window. The snow had thickened, muffling the city's usual hum. A cold thrill ran through me. The files, the ledger, the proof, finally, everything could be released. Martin's voice crackled in my mind. Once it goes live, the world changes. Be ready. Been ready since Christmas. I muttered under my breath. We compressed the files into 1 folder. Evergreen evidence. Martin had set up secure drops, 1 public, 1 encrypted, 1 anonymous news outlet. In minutes, the folder started uploading. Progress bars crawled like slow hearts beating. First bar, 30%, then 50%. Eli muttered under his breath as traces of server interference appeared. Richard's people were trying to block the upload. Let them try, I said, voice low. They're too slow. 90%, 95%, the lights flickered. Then, white flash. A soft chime. Upload complete. Eli leaned back, exhausted. It's live. Every journalist, every watchdog, every platform has access now. I exhaled. Martin nodded from the shadows. You'll have to disappear for a while. Already did, I said. Now I just finished what they started hiding. Eli packed up. I'll monitor servers. If they trace it, you'll know first. I smiled faintly. Let them watch. The show just started. Outside, snowflakes tapped against the windows like a metronome. Inside, I felt the weight of decades of lies crackle into truth. Finally, the Whitmore empire had an audible heartbeat, and it was about to be exposed. But exposure has a price. The moment the files hit the public eye, Richard, Daniel, and anyone who profited from lies would fight back. And the storm they'd bring? I hadn't even felt it yet. By the next morning, the world had already flipped upside down. Snow hammered against the windows of Margaret's house like it was trying to wake the city from a lie. My phone buzzed nonstop. Unknown numbers, missed calls, texts from Martin. They moved first. Eli had been taken. My chest tightened. The message replayed in my head, over and over. I dialed Martin's number and reached voicemail. Another text appeared. Stay quiet. They're coming for evidence. I tucked the phone into my coat and went outside. The cold was sharp, biting, and necessary. It reminded me that while they controlled the past, I still controlled this moment. Margaret, oblivious to the digital chaos, poured tea like nothing was happening. I stayed quiet. Half an hour later, the news alert hit every screen. Federal investigation into Evergreen Fund denied allegations. Spokesperson claims all accusers will be prosecuted. I whispered, he's bluffing. And Martin confirmed it later. They moved fast, but mistakes were already stacking. Then came the crash. Tires squealed on ice, metal folding, the sound that rattles your chest and memory. I sprinted down the steps and saw it. Margaret's car flipped. Her hand still clutched the steering wheel. Margaret, can you hear me? I screamed. She moved slightly, but her grip loosened. The necklace, the silver snowflake, slipped from her neck and into my hand. Warm, solid, proof of what mattered. The ambulance arrived too late to be comforting. All I could do was hold that necklace and feel the cold bite at my skin, knowing that danger now wasn't hypothetical. Back inside, the house felt hollow. Her teacup still steamed on the table, and my phone buzzed again. Another text. This is your last warning. I typed back calmly. I don't take warnings. I make them. Then I called Martin. His voice was strained, breath heavy. They came for me too. They're holding me, obstruction of justice. Are you hurt? I asked. No, he said. Just cornered. But Nora, they're violent, losing control. I clenched the silver snowflake necklace in my hand, letting the warmth settle my fear. Then I opened Ellie's laptop. The last file synced automatically. A hidden message inside. Backup secured. If you're reading this, I'm safe enough. Continue. I played the audio from Sophie again. Her voice trembled, repeating what she had admitted. He said the files were deleted. Evergreen's gone. I smiled faintly. Not anymore. I sent the clip to every journalist Martin had contacts for, then uploaded it to the same anonymous network Eli used. The transfer completed. Inside, my pulse slowed. The necklace rested beside the steaming tea. She wanted peace, I whispered. I'll give her truth. Hours later, the power flickered. A news alert appeared. Unverified audio leak tied to Evergreen investigation. Still frame shows Sophie Whitmore mid-sentence. I exhaled. Now they couldn't bury it. My phone rang Martin. It's spreading. The feds are reopening. You'll be safe by morning. Safe, I said. The word felt light, almost foreign. Outside, snow turned red under flashing lights from the accident scene. The chaos of exposure was just beginning. Headlines would scream. They would panic. They would try to fight back. But I had the proof. The doorbell rang once. Sharp, deliberate. I didn't move. Twice more. Through the glass, a shadow appeared, tall, still, holding something metallic. A cane. Richard. I switched off the lights, letting darkness become my ally. The silver snowflake glinted faintly in my palm. He knocked again, slow and calculated. Nora, his voice called. We need to talk. I whispered to myself. No. It ends with the truth. The knocking stopped. Tires crunching on ice. Silence. For the first time in years, I felt the calm that comes before a storm explodes fully. The kind of calm that lets you breathe even when everything is on fire. Richard might have tried to corner me, but he couldn't erase the evidence, the recordings, or the truth. And soon, the world would see the Whitmore empire crumble, brick by brick, lie by lie. By sunrise, the city was quiet, but not innocent. Snow lay thick on streets, muted the usual noise, like the world itself was holding its breath. I sat by Margaret's window, coffee cold in my hands, watching the fallout. The Evergreen files had gone live. Headlines flickered across every screen I could see. Whitmore Family Foundation under federal review. Exclusive audio confession from Sophie Whitmore. Evergreen fraud files leak online. I muted the TV, letting the silence replace the chaos. The first shots were fired online, but the real impact was in person. Daniel, alone facing cameras, his usual arrogance gone. He didn't look for allies. There were none left. Sophie was nowhere in sight. She finally stepped out of his shadow, or maybe just away from the spotlight. And then came my father, Richard Whitmore, standing before his mansion gates. His jaw was tight, his posture rigid, The crowd pressed in, microphones shoved toward him like hungry reporters at a rock show. His voice sounded almost human, tired even. My family has always stood for charity and truth. These accusations are an attack on our legacy. The cameras zoomed. He raised a hand to push through the crowd. Then he stopped. Agents in dark coats stepped forward. One flashed a badge. FBI. The anchor's voice cut through the tension. Breaking news. Federal authorities have issued warrants against Richard Whitmore and associates of the Evergreen Foundation for fraud and embezzlement. I exhaled slowly, letting my shoulders drop for the first time in days. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it arrives disguised as snow and news alerts. I watched Daniel's face on the screen, a man who once thought money and manipulation could shield him, now cornered, shrinking under the weight of what he thought he controlled. I let a small smile cross my face. He wouldn't find me. Not this time. Martin called. They arrested him, he said, voice steady. He's not talking. Sophie's confession sealed it. They found everything, offshore accounts, fake signatures. Eli pulled it all. And Eli? I asked. He's free. Charges dropped. I exhaled again. The storm had passed, or at least paused. The city was waking up to a new reality. I sat back, tracing the silver snowflake in my hand. Mom's legacy, Margaret's foresight, my own endurance, all wrapped into this tiny, glowing reminder. Martin spoke again. You've proven the truth. Now it's your choice what to do with it. I looked back at the screen. My father being led through courthouse doors, handcuffed, coat collar high. He wasn't defiant anymore. Just human, fragile, real. I'll let it breathe, I said softly. No more noise. No more performance. No more pretending. Martin's voice softened. You did what your mother couldn't. Then I'll honor her by stopping here, I said. Are you sure? Yes, I said. Revenge ends where truth begins. The TV cut to commercials. Outside, the sun spilled over the snow, melting shadows into light. The world was wide, cold, forgiving in its own way. I whispered to the empty chair across from me, where Margaret's presence still lingered. You were right. Justice doesn't shout. It echoes. The kettle whistled. I turned it off, poured another cup of tea, sat back, watched the screen fade to snow. 2 weeks passed. Phones quieted. Headlines faded. The snow turned to slush. The city returned to its usual hum. A small envelope appeared on my porch one morning. No return address. My name in Margaret's handwriting. Inside, one sheet of paper. Her words flowed steady, careful. Forgiveness is freedom, not approval. Don't confuse peace with silence. When the truth is spoken, you can rest. I read it twice, bolded it, set it on the table beside the teacup she always used. Sophie appeared shortly after, coat buttoned to her throat, eyes red but clear. She paused at the doorway. Can we talk? I stepped aside. You already did, remember? On camera. Her face flinched. I let her in anyway. She sat, hands clasped. I didn't come to defend myself. I came to say, I'm sorry. Sorry is easy after you're safe, I said. She looked at me, tremor in her voice. I was jealous, Nora. I hated how calm you always were, how father listened to you. And then Daniel. I thought taking him made me madder. And it made you smaller, I said softly. She leaned back, tears spilling quietly. I don't deserve forgiveness. Maybe not, I said. But forgiveness isn't earned. It's chosen by the living so the dead can rest. Sophie covered her face. I handed her the silver snowflake. It belongs to whoever stopped hiding. You can carry the proof now. She held it tight, eyes wide. What if I ruin it? You won't, I said. It's real. The Whitmore empire had fallen, the lies exposed, and yet life didn't roar back into normal. Truth remained quiet, patient, unstoppable, and the final act of rebuilding was just beginning. Christmas morning returned a year later. The house wasn't empty. It was calm, peaceful, quiet in a way that actually felt earned. The world had moved on from the Evergreen scandal, the arrest, the leaked files. Headlines faded, cameras went dark, and the phones finally stopped buzzing. I stood by the window, watching the lake freeze into a sheet of glass. Sunlight hit the surface, turning it into something almost magical, like a mirror reflecting a world that finally had clarity. The morning silence felt like a gift. On the desk lay a folder stamped in gold. Margaret Foundation for Truth. Signed papers, filed and sealed. Martin had stopped by the day before to finalize it. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "It's everything my family left behind. Now it belongs to the people who need it." Martin nodded. "The foundation will fund investigative programs for women who've been silenced. Small but real." I picked up a pen, Margaret's old fountain pen, the one she used to correct my essays, and signed the last page. My hand shook slightly. "Done," I whispered. Outside, church bells rang softly over the frozen lake. I walked to the fireplace and placed the folder inside a small velvet-lined box. Next to it, the teacup Margaret always used, chipped and perfect. Some things didn't need fixing. They just needed to be remembered. Eli showed up a few minutes later, cheeks red from the cold, holding a small parcel. "Merry Christmas," he said. "Backup drive. The files. Thought you'd want them in the archives." I shook my head. "No, the world already saw them. Keep one copy for security. The rest, let it go." "You sure?" "Yes. Justice doesn't need replaying. It just needs to stay true." Martin's voice came next. "The foundation is the best thing that came out of all this." I smiled faintly. The best thing was survival. Sophie writes now. Short letters. No lies. No pretenses. She's learning that truth isn't the enemy. I kept the silver snowflake necklace in my coat pocket, a reminder of who we were, what we survived, and why silence can't last forever. Some truths have to be carried. I walked to the frozen lake, air sharp enough to cut, clean enough to wake you from years of pretending. At the edge of the dock, I pulled the necklace from my pocket. Sophie had returned it months ago, saying, "It belongs to the one who stopped hiding." I whispered, "For you, Mom. For Margaret. For all of us who stayed quiet too long." I let it slip from my fingers. The pendant spun, catching sunlight, sending silver ripples across the ice. For a heartbeat, the whole lake shimmered like it had swallowed the secret and decided to keep it safe. Then it went still. No grand gestures. No applause. No celebrations. Just the wind, the snow, the quiet acknowledgement of everything that had happened. I turned back toward the house. The foundation papers rested on the desk, tea cooled beside them. Outside, the world looked wide, forgiving. I whispered, almost to myself. Justice arrived. On time. Sun climbed higher, spilling light across the frozen water. Somewhere distant, bells rang again. Soft, distant, endless. I closed the door gently behind me. Some things don't need noise. They just need to be true. I walked inside, letting the quiet fill me. The memory of Margaret and my mother warming the space. The fight was over. The empire fell. The lies ended. What remained was clean, unshakable, and entirely ours. Silence, truth, and new beginning. Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it just breathes, quietly, patiently, unstoppable. And the world, no matter how loud, can finally hear it.